Okay, I'll get it.
This is docket 2329 FC, people of the state of Michigan versus Willie James Jr. Counsel, your appearances for the record.
Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Deputy Chief Assistant William Creno on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Jared Austin, appearing on behalf of Mr. James. He is present with me at council table, along with Mr. Luke Goodrich, who is also appearing on behalf of Mr. James.
Thank you. Are there any preliminary matters prior to bringing in the jurors, as well as we do have the impaneled instructions that I will be reading? Are there any issues that we need to discuss prior to doing that?
Thank you, Your Honor. There is one preliminary matter this morning, and it does relate to the instructions. We feel that we need to place this on the record prior to those being read to the jury here this morning. Your Honor, as has been clear in the voir dire in this case, and as the court is aware, this is a quote-unquote no-body homicide, which is not really a legal term. That's just a factual term that's easy to apply to a case like this. But where a body has not been found, Michigan case law voluminously supports that the people can proceed with a homicide prosecution, that it is not required to have a body. However, because there are certain nuances to that, that requires that the jury instructions be amended to reflect the fact that a body has not been found. And specifically, where we do not have a body or remains, we cannot specifically determine what the mechanism of injury would be. So for example, if we had a body, like a normal homicide case, the medical examiner would come in and say the person died as a result of gunshot wounds or a stabbing or whatever the mechanism would be. And the Supreme Court is very clear in the state of Michigan that we do not have to prove mechanism in a no-body homicide. So therefore, the jury instructions which are allowed are amended consistent with the facts. So with that preamble, Your Honor, there was another no-body homicide prosecution in 2023. I was trial counsel on that. Mr. Silverthorne and Mr. Watson were trial counsel on that. The jury instructions were amended in that case after we filed a lengthy brief and memorandum. In fact, Mr. Silverthorne did not even contest that. The public defender's office stipulated that these were the accurate instructions. Prior to going to court in this matter, I discussed this with Mr. Austin. I provided him a copy of the brief that we filed in the case of People versus Bragg-Bernay in front of Judge Dragonchuk, which has now been affirmed by the Michigan Court of Appeals. He read that brief, he read that memo. I believe he agrees that the amendments that we suggested to the elements of first degree, second degree, and Rule 16 or Instruction 1615 are all accurate and in accordance with the law for no-body prosecution. So we do have that amendment. Essentially what that amendment is to count or to element 1, which says we only have to prove essentially criminal agency, which means that the victim died as a result of an act of the defendant, not a specific act, which would normally be required by the jury instructions. So it's all by stipulation. We just think the record should reflect that before we read it to the jury, before that goes to the jury later. The council agrees with this amendment that it's stipulated to, and that's why we proposed it to the court. So I'll defer to Mr. Austin.
Can you tell me which?
So if you
is this in 2.4?
When you read the instructions for first and second degree murder to the jury here this morning.
All right, it says first that defendant caused the death of Andrew Watson II. That is, Andrew Watson II died as a result of an act of defendant.
That's the portion. Normally that would read, that is Andrew Watson died as a result of a gunshot wound or a stab wound or whatever. So that's reflected in the preliminary instructions where you just indicated, and then in the final instructions, it'll be reflected in one other place.
Okay, I was looking for something that said nobody has been discovered, but we're not doing that. It's just this line. That's the only modification. Really.
That's the only modification, okay. And I think it's it took 20 pages of memo to get there, but I think that's in accordance with the law of the state of Michigan, and I think Mr. Austin agrees.
Mr. Austin.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I did have a chance to review the People's Memorandum of Law on that particular issue. I also took the opportunity to do my own independent research in the matter. I do think the case law is in accordance with what Mr. Creno says as it relates to that particular instruction. Quite frankly, I think it makes sense. So I have had an opportunity to review the case law as well as the proposed instruction. I do not have an objection to the way it's currently worded.
Thank you, and just for the record, so we have it in this, I know you read it in the other case. For the record, do we have that citation?
I don't have that in front of me. I can put 5 citations on at a later point, and, you know, perhaps we can do that prior to the
That's fine.
reading of the final instructions, but it's a body of case law essentially.
Yes, I just want it in this record for health purposes.
Yes, Your Honor, makes perfect sense.
No, any objection to that?
No,
All right, thank you. Are there any other preliminary matters?
Just briefly, we had one witness that we requested a bench warrant on Friday. Her name was Liliana Rose. She has been arrested. She is in custody at the Ingham County Jail. So at some point time today, if we possible, we'd like to see if we can have the jail bring her over. Court can arraign her on that bench warrant, and then we can take her testimony this afternoon if we have the time.
Do you know if she has civilian clothes?
I'm assuming she was arrested in civilian clothes, so I bet we can dress her out in civilian clothes, yes.
Okay, so maybe they can do the swap. I don't know what else is going on down the hall, but maybe during the lunch hour, they can take whoever back that other judges are working with and then bring her.
If that works, we haven't coordinated with the jail. She got picked up, was it Friday? She got picked up Friday night, so we couldn't advise the court till this morning. So I'm sure she got picked up in civilian clothes. We do need to bring her over. It would be our preference to do it today. If we have to do it tomorrow, we can.
No, let's try it today, but we'll call over as soon as we can and see if we can make arrangements with them sometime over the noon hour so they can make their own arrangements. So we give them warning. I think, Brian, you could call perhaps. Yes, he says yes. Okay.
All right, we have no preliminary matters, Your Honor. Thank you. No further preliminary matters.
On behalf of the defendant,
nothing that needs to be taken up at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. James. Thank you.
thank you. The jurors, please.
Rise.
Good morning. Thank you. You may be seated. You all have your notepads. Yes, all right, thank you. So you may take notes if you wish, but you don't have to. As to the instructions I'm reading, you can take notes, but I really need you to listen. You'll each have your own copy to refer to, and which will be given to you on one of the breaks. So it's important that you listen, take notes if you wish, as long as you can listen, and then you'll have your own set to refer to during the trial. Members of the jury have been chosen to decide a criminal charge made by the state of Michigan against one of your fellow citizens. In a moment, I will ask you to stand and swear to perform your duty to try the case justly and reach a true verdict. If your religious beliefs do not permit you to take an oath, you may instead affirm to try the case justly and reach a true verdict. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do each of you swear or affirm that in this action now before the court, you will justly decide the questions submitted to you? That unless you are discharged by the court from further deliberation, you will render a true verdict and you will render your verdict only on the evidence introduced and in accordance with the instructions of the court, so help you God. Thank you, may be seated. As I just said, you will receive a written copy of the instructions I'm now reading. You may refer to them during the trial, since no one can predict the course of a trial. These instructions may change at the end of the trial. At the close of the trial, I will provide you with a copy of my final instructions for your use during deliberations. I will now explain some of the legal principles you will need to know in the procedure we will follow in this trial. A trial follows this procedure. First, the prosecutor makes an opening statement where he gives his theories about the case. Defendant's lawyer does not have to make an opening statement, but he may make an opening statement after the prosecutor makes his, or he may wait until later. These statements are not evidence. They're only meant to help you understand how each side views the case. Next, the prosecutor presents his evidence. The prosecutor may call witnesses to testify and may show you exhibits like documents or objects. The defendant's lawyer has the right to cross-examine the prosecutor's witnesses. After the prosecutor has presented all his evidence, defendant's attorney may offer evidence, but does not have to. By law, the defendant does not have to prove his innocence or to do anything or produce any evidence. If the defense does call any witnesses, the prosecutor has the right to cross-examine them. The prosecutor may also call witnesses to contradict the testimony of the defense witnesses. After all the evidence has been presented, the prosecutor and defendant's lawyer will make their closing arguments. Like the opening statements, these are not evidence. They're only meant to help you understand the evidence and the way each side sees the case. You must base your verdict only on the evidence admitted during this trial. Defendant is charged with the crime of first-degree premeditated murder in count 1, open murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that defendant caused the death of Andrew Watson II. That is, that Andrew Watson II died as a result of an act of defendant. Second, that defendant had one of these 3 states of mind. He intended to kill, or he intended to do great bodily harm to Andrew Watson II, or he knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of his actions. Third, that this intent to kill was premeditated, that is, thought out beforehand. Fourth, that the killing was deliberate, which means that defendant considered the pros and cons of the killing and thought about and chose his actions before he did it. There must have been real and substantial reflection for long enough to give a reasonable person a chance to think twice about the intent to kill. The law does not say how much time is needed. It is for you to decide if enough time passed under the circumstances of this case. The killing cannot be the result of a sudden impulse without thought or reflection. You may also consider the lesser crime of second-degree murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that defendant caused the death of Andrew Watson II. That is, that Andrew Watson II died as a result of an act of defendant. Second, that defendant had one of these three states of mind. He intended to kill, or he intended to do great bodily harm to Andrew Watson II, or he knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of his actions. A person accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. This means that you must start with the presumption that defendant is innocent. This presumption continues throughout the trial and entitles defendant to a verdict of not guilty unless you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty. Every crime is made up of parts called elements. The prosecutor must prove each element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. Defendant is not required to prove his innocence or to do anything. If you find that the prosecutor has not proven every element beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find defendant not guilty. A reasonable doubt is a fair, honest doubt growing out of the evidence or lack of evidence. It is not merely an imaginary or possible doubt, but a doubt based on reason and common sense. A reasonable doubt is just that, a doubt that is reasonable after a careful and considered examination of the facts and circumstances of this case. My responsibilities as the judge in this trial are to make sure that the trial is run fairly and efficiently, to make decisions about evidence, and to instruct you about the law that applies to this case. You must take the law as I give it to you. Nothing I say is meant to reflect my own opinions about the facts of this case. As jurors, you are the ones who will decide this case. Your responsibility as jurors is to decide what the facts of this case are. This is your job, no one else's. You must think about all the evidence and all the testimony and then decide what each piece of evidence means and how important you think it is. This includes how much you believe what each of the witnesses said. What you decide about any fact in this case is final. Part of your job in deciding what the facts of this case are is to decide which witnesses you believe and how important you think their testimony is. You do not have to accept or reject everything a witness says. You are free to believe all, none, or any part of any person's testimony. In deciding which testimony you believe, you should rely on your own common sense and everyday experience. However, in deciding whether you believe a person's testimony, you must set aside any bias, prejudice you may have, or let me start that again. You must set aside any bias or prejudice you may have based on the witness's race, national origin or ethnicity, gender, gender identity, or sexual orientation, or religion, age, or socioeconomic status. There are no fixed set rules for judging whether you believe a witness, but it may help you to think about some of these questions. Was the witness able to see or hear clearly? How long was the witness watching or listening? Was anything else going on that might have distracted the witness? Does the witness seem to have a good memory? How does the witness look and act while testifying? Does the witness seem to be making an honest effort to tell the truth? Or does the witness seem to evade the questions or argue with the lawyers? Does the witness's age or maturity affect how you judge his or her testimony? Does the witness have any bias or prejudice or any personal interest in how this case is decided? Have there been any promises, threats, suggestions, or other influences that affect how the witness testifies? In general, does the witness have any special reason to tell the truth or any special reason to lie? All in all, how reasonable does the witness's testimony seem when you think about all the other evidence in the case. When it is time for you to decide the case, you are only allowed to consider the evidence that was admitted in the case. Evidence includes only the sworn testimony of witnesses, the exhibits admitted into evidence, and anything else I tell you to consider as evidence. If I strike testimony or don't allow evidence, you are not allowed to consider that. The questions the lawyers ask the witnesses are not evidence. Only the answers are evidence. You should not think that something is true just because one of the lawyers asks questions that assume or suggest that it is. I may ask some of the witnesses questions myself. These questions are not meant to reflect my opinion about the evidence. If I ask questions, my only reason would be to ask about things that may not have been fully explored. If you cannot hear something that is said or presented, or if you cannot see a witness or evidence, please raise your hand immediately and we will take care of whatever the issue is. Similarly, I think I told you on Friday, I don't like to break up testimony, but if you need a break, please raise your hand and we will take a break. During the trial, the lawyers may object to certain questions or statements made by the other lawyers or witnesses. I will rule on these objections according to the law. My rulings for or against one side or the other are not meant to reflect my opinions about the facts of this case. Sometimes the lawyers and I will have discussions out of your hearing. Also, while you're in the jury room, I may have to take care of other matters that have absolutely nothing to do with this case. Pay no attention to these interruptions. They do happen, and we do try to keep them to a minimum. You must not discuss this case with anyone, including your family or friends. You must not even discuss the case with the other jurors until the time comes for you to decide the case. When it's time for you to decide the case, I will send you to the jury room specifically for that purpose. Then you should discuss the case amongst yourselves, but only in the jury room and only when all jurors are present. You must not talk to a defendant, the lawyers, witnesses, or anyone who may be connected to this case. This means that you may not speak to these individuals even if it has nothing at all to do with this case. You should be very cautious about speaking to people because you may inadvertently speak to someone connected to this case. This restriction is necessary to avoid even the appearance of any improper conduct on any person's part. If anyone tries to discuss the case with you or in your presence, tell them to stop. Explain that as a juror, you are not allowed to discuss the case. If they continue, leave and report the incident to court staff as soon as you return to court. When the trial is over, these restrictions no longer apply, and you may, if you wish, discuss the case with anyone. During the trial, do not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence you consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side or the other. So, to be fair to both sides, you must follow this instruction. The restrictions I'm about to describe are meant to ensure that the parties receive a fair trial. In our judicial system, it is crucial that jurors are not influenced by anything or anyone outside the courtroom. Under the law, the evidence you consider must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because information obtained outside the courtroom does not have these safeguards, it could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. These restrictions continue until you are discharged from jury service. It is your duty as a juror to decide this case based solely on the evidence you see and hear in this courtroom. You must not consider information that comes from anywhere else. This means that until you deliver your verdict, you must not read, watch, listen to, or receive any information, including opinions or commentary about the case, whether in newspapers, on television, the radio, the internet, or on social media platforms. You must also not research any aspect of the case during the trial. This means research using a cellular phone, computer, or other electronic device to search the internet, as well as research with traditional sources like dictionaries, encyclopedias, reference manuals, newspapers, or magazines. You cannot use AI or ChatGPT. You must not investigate the case on your own or conduct any experiments concerning the case, including investigations or experiments using the internet, cellular phones, computers, or other electronic devices. You must not visit the scene of any event at issue in this trial. If it would become necessary for you to view or visit the scene, you would be taken there as a group under court supervision. You must not consider as evidence any personal knowledge you may have about the scene. You must not share any information about the case by any means, including cellular phones or social media. This means that even if you're not discussing the case with someone else, you may not post any information about the case on social media, websites, or in any other manner. This includes, for those of you who use Facebook, Instagram, all of those social websites, please don't make any new friends. They might be associated to this case, although we use numbers. I've had things like that happen. So I don't know who knows you're in jury duty or who might search you out. And so please stay free of new friends on social media as well. You may not post any information on the case on social media websites or in any other manner, and if you discover a juror has violated any of my instructions, report it to court staff at once. You may take notes during trial if you wish, but you don't have to. If you do take notes, you should be careful that it does not distract you from paying attention to all the evidence. When you go to the jury room to decide your verdict, you may use your notes to help you remember what happened in the courtroom. If you do take notes, do not let anyone except the other jurors see them. That's only during deliberations. Right now, it's like test taking in school. You don't look at your partner's notes. Your notes will not be examined by anyone, and when your jury service concludes, your notes will be collected and destroyed. You can see that we've chosen a jury of 14. After you've heard all the evidence of my instructions, we will draw lots to decide which two of you will be dismissed to form a jury of 12. That's random, simply two numbers are pulled out. The way that I do it in my courtroom, because I've had a number of things that have happened while you're in deliberations, you might get sick, a loved one may fall ill, there's any number of things that can happen. So if for some reason you needed to be discharged during deliberations, we would randomly select one or two, depending, or maybe both of the people who were discharged and call them back. So for that reason, the two of you who are discharged are only discharged to go about your life, but do not talk about the case. And then if you were called back, deliberations would start fresh. Possible penalties should not influence your decision. If you find defendants guilty, it is the duty of the judge to keep the penalty within the limits provided by the law. I may give you more instructions during the trial. After all the evidence has been presented, you will hear the lawyer's closing arguments. Following the closing arguments, I will give you additional instructions about the rules of law that apply to this case. You should consider all of my instructions as a connected series. Taken all together, they are the law you must follow. After my final instructions, you will go to the jury room to decide on your verdict. A verdict in a criminal case must be unanimous. That means that every juror must agree on it, and it must reflect the individual decision of each juror. It is important for you to keep an open mind and not make a decision about anything in the case until you go to the jury room to decide the case. You must not let bias, prejudice, or public opinion influence your decision. Each of us may have biases or perceptions about other people based on stereotypes. We may be aware of some of our biases, though we do not express them. We may not be fully aware of some of our other biases. Take the time you need to test what might be automatic or instinctive judgments and to reflect carefully about the evidence. I caution you again to avoid reaching conclusions that may have been unintentionally influenced by stereotypes. You must reach your own conclusions about this case individually, but you should do so only after listening to and considering the opinions of the other jurors who may have different backgrounds and perspectives from yours. Now, I've worked with these counsel for a long time, and it's very possible that during this trial, you will hear that they have stipulated to certain things. They'll let you know what that stipulation is. A stipulation is an agreement. On behalf of the people, are you satisfied with the reading of this set of instructions?
Thank you, Your Honor. The people are satisfied.
On behalf of the defendant, are you satisfied?
Yes, we are, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, on behalf of the people, opening,
Thank you, Your Honor.
you may proceed.
Three cellular phones soaked with blood and discarded in a plastic garbage bag. A car seat stained with soaked in blood. These were the only traces found of 38-year-old Andrew Watson, who disappeared off the face of the earth on January 12th of 2021. The day before, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Watson had been alive and well, visiting with friends and his parents. In fact, when Andrew left his parents' house on January 11th, he promised his mom, Otelia, that he would stop at the grocery store and later bring her back some items. Otelia Watson never saw or heard from her son again. On the night of January 12th of 2021, the last time that Andrew Watson was seen alive, his friend Alyssa drove him to play poker with a man nicknamed Unc at an apartment located at 1904 Georgetown in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan. Alyssa returned a little while later that night. She brought Andrew some food and she brought him a phone charger. Andrew and Alyssa said, "I love you," and they hugged. After that night, Andrew Watson was never heard from or seen alive again by any of his family or friends. Andrew Watson, ladies and gentlemen, had vanished. In fact, now 5 years later, Andrew Watson has never been heard from after January 12th of 2021, and his body has never even been found. The man nicknamed Unc that Andrew went to play high-dollar poker with on the night of January 12th, 2021, will be identified in this case as this defendant, Willie James Jr. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this case will be about the disappearance of Andrew Watson. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this case will be about the murder of Andrew Watson. But in order for you to fully understand that disappearance, death, and murder, it will be important for you to look at the life of Andrew Watson, a life that on January 12th of 2021 was being fully lived in some very positive ways and in some very negative ways, but a life nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that was being fully lived, a life that on January 12th of 2021 was brutally and intentionally snuffed out by this defendant. As a result of his actions on or about January 12th of 2021, this defendant is charged in a one-count information with the crime of open murder. And it is the position of the people of the state of Michigan that the evidence will show you in this case beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is in fact guilty of the offenses charged. As members of this jury, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be taken on a journey into two likely unfamiliar worlds. The first world is the world of this courtroom, which is governed by very specific rules and procedures given to you in the form of instructions by Judge Aquilina. In fact, just prior to my opening statement here this morning, Judge Aquilina has already read to you some of the preliminary instructions that govern the rules and procedures of a trial. At the close of this case and prior to your deliberations, Judge Aquilina will again instruct you. And at that time, she will again instruct you on each of the elements of the crimes that must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The crimes that you as a jury will collectively deliberate on. We expect that Judge Aquilina will again instruct you on something called open murder. And what open murder means, ladies and gentlemen, is that Judge Aquilina will define for you the different kinds and types of homicide offenses that you as a jury may consider collectively during your deliberations. It is the people's position in this case, ladies and gentlemen, that this defendant is guilty of the crime of first-degree premeditated murder. When we speak to you again during our summation, we will argue to you the facts of this case as they relate to proving that charge of first-degree premeditated murder, as well as all of the other crimes upon which you are charged. But for purposes of my opening statement here this morning on behalf of the people want to go over to you what our theories are in this case and what we anticipate that the evidence will show you. The second world that the evidence will take you into this case is a very complicated and ultimately frightening world indeed. A world of high dollar street gambling, of violence, and of murder. A world that part of the person that we know as Andrew Watson walked in, and a world that ultimately took his life. We anticipate that you are going to hear extensive evidence in this case, including witness testimony, exhibits, and forensic evidence. And it is our theory to you in this case that all of that evidence will come down ultimately to 5 things. First, relationships. Second, sudden extreme disappearance. Third, lethal opportunity and action. 4, cover up. And 5, murder. As we start in now and look at this concept of relationships, we expect that the evidence will show you that Andrew Watson was a complicated person. He was basically leading 2 very diverse lifestyles characterized by 2 very diverse relationships. You will hear today that Andrew had a very warm and loving relationship with his parents, his mother Otelia and his father Andrew Sr. Andrew will be described as a loving and devoted son who would help his parents with errands and he would help them financially. Andrew had 3 sisters and maintained a close sibling relationship with all of his sisters. Andrew had 5 children, and we expect that you will hear that he will be described as a good father who maintained strong relationships with his children, and you will hear that Andrew would never leave his children. Andrew Watson had close relationships with multiple women in his life. And right up front, let's say this, Andrew was not a monogamous man, okay? You're going to hear that Andrew had romantic relationships at the time of his disappearance with 2 or 3 different women. But in addition to those very warm romantic relationships he had with multiple women, Andrew maintained close friendships, especially with one of his ex-girlfriends, and he had friendships with other women. What will be clear to you in this case from all of these relationships, ladies and gentlemen, is that though somewhat unusual or maybe somewhat unorthodox by different people's standards, Andrew Watson had close relationships in his life with parents and siblings and children and girlfriends and friends. Andrew was a regular, constant, and daily presence in people's life, a regular, constant, and daily presence in their life. But all of that stopped on January 12th of 2021, and it was on that day that Andrew vanished. And none of those people who he was close with ever heard from him or saw him again. And it has been 5 years. You will hear that this person, Andrew Watson, who maintained these very warm and positive relationships in one portion of his life, had a very different side of his life. Not a secret side, but a very different side. The evidence is going to show you in this case that Andrew made his money on the street. And primarily how he made his money, a lot of money sometimes, was playing high dollar poker. It was this activity as a gambler that led Andrew into another very damaging relationship in his life. You will hear that in approximately April of 2020, Andrew began a relationship with a man named Willie James Jr. Willie James Jr. was a distant relative of Andrew, and Andrew referred to him as Unc. Andrew Watson and Willie James Jr. began a relationship where they frequently met and played high stakes, high dollar poker, one-on-one against each other. And ladies and gentlemen, when we tell you we are playing high dollar poker, we are not talking about multiple $100 hands. We are talking about high dollar poker that involved thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. You will hear that these one-on-one games would occur at different houses around Lansing and places that were prearranged by either the defendant or Andrew Watson. And you will hear that this person identified as Unc or Willie James Jr. is one and the same as this individual who is sitting here at council table, our defendant, Willie James Jr. We expect that the evidence in this case will focus on three separate time frames. As we discuss relationships and sudden extreme disappearance, the first two prongs of our theory, the evidence will begin on January 11th of 2021, the day before Andrew disappeared off the face of the earth. You're going to hear testimony today from Andrew's mother, Otelia Watson. Otelia is going to tell you that she had 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son, and that the Watson family was very close. Andrew had close sibling relationships with his sisters and a very close relationship with Otelia and her husband, Andrew Sr. Andrew would frequently call, he would visit, and he would help his parents out. In fact, on Monday, January 11th of 2021, Andrew was visiting, as he often did, in the afternoon with his parents. When he left that day, Andrew offered to pick up items for the grocery store for his mother. Andrew left that day and he never returned. It wasn't uncommon that Andrew would say, hey, I'm going to pick up some items for you, and then come back a day or two later. It wasn't uncommon. But when a couple of days passed, Otelia and Andrew Sr. started to get concerned. Andrew had not returned. They had not heard from him. So they decided to call him and call him again. Andrew didn't answer. Otelia is going to tell you that she and her husband became very concerned. This was not like Andrew. When they called him, he got back to them. And they reached out to Andrew's close friend, who was named Latara Husband, who we expect you will hear from in this case. And Latara and Andrew had been in a long-term relationship with each other. They had had a serious relationship, but since they had broken up, they still remained close friends. And Latara always knew how to get in touch with Andrew. On Saturday, the 16th, now 5 days after they last saw their son, Otelia heard back from Latara. No one had heard from Andrew. No one had seen him. No one could find him. Where was Andrew? The Watson family was so concerned that on the afternoon of January 16th, 2021, Andrew Watson Sr. filed a missing persons report on his son, Andrew Watson Jr., and he filed that with the Lansing Police Department. That report was taken by Officer Bo Idowski from the Lansing Police Department, who you will hear from, we expect, today. The second time frame, ladies and gentlemen, that this evidence will lead us to is the next day, January 12th, 2021 in the evening. And you're going to hear that on that day, Andrew and this defendant agreed again to meet and play high dollar poker. You will hear who initiated that game and that a plan was made to play poker at a location, a townhouse at 1904 Georgetown in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan. And the evidence is going to show you that when Andrew left his apartment that night, ladies and gentlemen, he had over $10,000 in cash with him to go play poker. After leaving his apartment, Andrew was picked up by one of his romantic partners, Alyssa Ryan. You're going to hear testimony from Alyssa Ryan in this case. It will be on a transcript that is read to you for legal reasons. And what Alyssa Ryan will tell you is that on the evening of January 12th of 2021, she picked up Andrew and drove him to an apartment located in the Georgetown apartment complex on the south side of Lansing. Ms. Ryan will state that after picking Andrew up, she drove him to Georgetown, where he was going to be in a poker game with a man named Unk. During the drive to Georgetown, Andrew received a phone call. Ms. Ryan will describe that the person on the other line was hostile, was yelling at Andrew, and in response, Andrew was saying, quote, "I'm on my way, I'm coming, don't leave." In fact, Andrew made it very clear to Alyssa that he was in a huge rush to get to Georgetown. The person he was meeting was angry, and Andrew needed to get there ASAP. Ms. Ryan will tell you that she and Andrew eventually arrived at the townhouse apartment located in Georgetown. When they arrived, Ms. Ryan observed a vehicle she described as a suburban type vehicle that looked like a Yukon, and it was goldish in color. A black male with a beard, wearing a hat, a large coat, and sunglasses exited the truck waiting for Andrew. Ms. Ryan will describe that when Andrew exited the car that night, he had at least 2 cellular phones in his possession and was holding a grocery bag that the evidence will show you was filled with more than $10,000 in cash. Ms. Ryan will describe that Andrew and the bearded individual walked together into the townhouse on Georgetown. And the direct and circumstantial evidence in this case will identify to you that the male subject that met Andrew outside of the townhouse that night was this defendant, Willie James Jr. Ms. Ryan will describe that prior to walking inside, she and Andrew discussed getting some food for the two of them. In response, Ms. Ryan subsequently went to Applebee's, where she picked up some food for her and Andrew. The receipt for that Applebee's pickup indicates that it was ordered at 9:44 p.m. on January 12th of 2001 and picked up at 10 o'clock p.m. on January 12th of 2021. Ms. Ryan will tell you that after picking up the food at Applebee's, she drove that food together with a charger for Andrew back over to the townhouse on Georgetown. She went inside the townhouse briefly. Ms. Ryan dropped off Andrew's food and she dropped off the charger. This was a brief interaction. They exchanged I love yous and hugged. Ms. Ryan will tell you that when she left the townhouse, she and Andrew kind of left it open as to whether she would come pick him up that night. He said he would call her. Andrew never called. She never heard from him. In fact, after January 12th of 2021, Alyssa Ryan never saw or spoke to Andrew Watson ever again. As we look at this sudden and extreme disappearance, ladies and gentlemen, we expect that you will hear from multiple persons in this case, to include Andrew's parents, his close friend, Latara husband, and Alyssa Ryan, about Andrew's sudden and unexpected disappearance off the face of the earth on January 12th of 2021. We expect you will hear about how these people individually experienced Andrew's sudden extreme disappearance, how they banded together to look for them despite some of their differences that they had with one another, the efforts that they jointly made to find Andrew and the places that they went to look for him. And what will be absolutely clear to you, ladies and gentlemen, beyond a reasonable doubt in this case, is that after the night of January 12th of 2021 at approximately 10 p.m., no one close to Andrew ever saw him or heard from him again. In summary, the witness in this case will show you that after that night of January 12th, 2021, Andrew vanished. Despite a massive investigation, as we're going to talk about in this case, 5 years later, Andrew's remains have never been found, except for his blood. In addition to the subjective evidence of eyewitness testimony to Andrew's sudden extreme disappearance, you're going to hear that crime analysts and intelligence analysts from the Lansing Police Department and the Michigan State Police repeatedly over the last 5 years plugged all of Andrew's personal databases into both national, local, and state databases, the databases that contain all of the information that control all of us. And what you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, is that after extensive database search over 5 years, there has not been one single piece of objective evidence developed that Andrew Watson was alive after January 12th of 2021. And ultimately, what the case is going to show you is the inevitable conclusion that tragically, 38-year-old Andrew Watson is dead. As we move from Andrew's sudden extreme disappearance, we now proceed into the lethal opportunity and action portion of the people's theory. And this will take us to the next time frame that the evidence will cover, the days and months after Andrew disappeared off the face of the earth. It was during this time, ladies and gentlemen, that police and investigators attempted to unravel the mystery of Andrew's sudden extreme disappearance. What had happened to Andrew? Who had Andrew been with? Was Andrew's disappearance some sort of horrible accident? And if not, who had killed Andrew and why had they killed him? Unraveling this mystery, ladies and gentlemen, proved to be no small task for investigators and the Lansing Police Department. And you're going to hear about a massive cooperative investigation in this case involving detectives, crime scene investigators, forensic scientists, and the Michigan State Police. An investigation that was led by the outstanding police work of this officer, Detective Kasha Lowe from the Lansing Police Department. You will hear testimony from Detective Lowe, who will tell you that she was assigned this case on January 19th of 2021, so 3 days after Andrew was reported missing by his family. When she was assigned this case, it was a missing persons case, and people disappear all the time and come back a few days later. So the first lens that Detective Lowe had on this was a missing persons type of matter. So she began her investigation. She talked to family and friends, some of which we've mentioned here, and she tried to recount and retrace Andrew's last steps before his disappearance. And after interviewing these people, Detective Osborne came up with two critical facts. First, that on the night of January 12th of 2021, Andrew was in possession of a lot of cash. Second, that the last time anyone had heard from Andrew or seen Andrew alive was just after 10 p.m. on the night of January 12th, 2021. And the third conclusion that she ultimately released was that when people last saw Andrew, he was off to play high-stakes poker with a man identified as Unc, the defendant Willie James, at a townhouse located at 1904 Georgetown in the city of Lansing within Ingham County, Michigan. Armed with this information, Detective Lowe began to investigate that location of 1904 Georgetown. And she learned that 1904 Georgetown was occupied by an older woman who coincidentally went by the name or the nickname Auntie, whose real name was Darlene Williams. Further investigation confirmed that on the night of January 12th, 2021, guess what? Andrew and the defendant had been at that apartment, that townhouse, playing high-dollar poker. You will see photographs taken of the interior of Georgetown and preliminary investigation and search that went on. But what you're going to hear, folks, is that there were no reports of any type of criminal activity at Georgetown that night, no reports or calls of any type of violent episode that occurred at Georgetown. As phase one of this missing persons investigation sort of came to a conclusion, Detective Lowe was still left with the question, what had happened to Andrew? You're going to hear that a major break in this investigation came on January 28th, 2021, about 16 days after Andrew disappeared. You're going to hear on that date at 2:40 p.m., Michigan State Police troopers executed a traffic stop on a 2011 GMC Yukon vehicle. That traffic stop was conducted on westbound I-96 over by Windsor Township in Eaton County. You will hear testimony from multiple troopers who were involved in that traffic stop, one of them whose name is Trooper Brian Bell. And we're giving you a lot of names, but they will all become apparent as they testify to you on the witness stand. And what Trooper Bell is going to tell you that he and his partner were monitoring traffic on westbound I-96 that day, and they executed a routine traffic stop on a 2011 GMC Yukon vehicle. Not only are you going to hear testimony from 3 troopers about that traffic stop, you're going to watch the traffic stop live. You're going to watch what we see live through in-car body cameras, or excuse me, in-car camera footage that was recorded. You're going to see that inside the vehicle, there were 2 occupants, a driver and a passenger. A similar description as we had heard from Melissa Ryan previously. The driver was a bearded black male wearing a large winter coat, a black hat, and sunglasses. That driver will, of course, be identified to you as the defendant in this case, Willie James Jr. And that 2011 GMC Yukon, that's going to be identified as Willie James Jr.'s primary vehicle. You're going to hear that during that traffic stop, and you're going to see that during that traffic stop, Mr. James was permissibly searched for officer safety. On his person, he had 2 cellular phones. And guess what else he had in his left pocket? He had a large stack of cash. During the stop, Michigan State Police troopers and Lansing police officers then searched the interior of the vehicle, and they made the following observations. First, police observed that the interior of the vehicle appeared extremely clean. The second thing that they observed was that there was only 1 floor mat in the back, and that was right behind the back passenger seat. And when they picked up that floor mat and they looked underneath, what did they see? Police observed that a large piece of carpeting had been cut out from the back passenger seat, right behind the passenger or the front passenger seat. You will hear that after that traffic stop, Detective Lowe received a phone call from this defendant, Willie James, and an interview was arranged for the next day. The evidence will show that on January 29th, 2021, the next day after that traffic stop, Detective Lowe and her partner, Detective McGonigal, interviewed the defendant in connection with the disappearance of Andrew Watson. This interview occurred at the Lansing Police Department Operations Center in South Lansing. This interview was both audio and video recorded, and you will see and hear the entirety of that interview as an admitted evidence in this case. We assert to you, folks, and we'll assert to you again during summation, that this defendant's statement, his baseline statement that he made to police, is a critically important piece of evidence. And in summation, we're going to argue to you to evaluate the credibility of that and other statements against the totality of the evidence in this case. During this interview, the defendant makes critical admissions which are important for you as jurors to consider when you look at the homicide of Andrew Watson. First, when asked to describe his relationship with Andrew Watson, the defendant simply stated, quote, "play cards." Defendant admitted that on January 12th, 2021, he and Andrew Watson were together playing cards at Auntie's house in Georgetown. Defendant also described that prior to the arrival, Andrew was late, corroborating what Alyssa Ryan said. But according to the defendant, it was Andrew who kept calling him, contacting him, saying, "I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there." In fact, the defendant's going to admit that he threatened to leave that night, but did not. The defendant admitted in this interview that he and Andrew would frequently play cards for lengthy periods of time, one time for up to 12 hours. The pair had frequently gambled for high money in the past. You're going to hear this defendant admit that one time he and Andrew gambled and that he lost $15,000 to Andrew in one-on-one poker. He's going to tell you that the prior Thursday or Friday, before Andrew disappeared, he had lost another $11,000 to Andrew. But that on the Sunday night before Andrew disappeared, he had won $8,000 back. Despite admitting typically playing marathon lengthy high dollar poker sessions, okay, and despite him being adamant that Andrew got to the game that night, the defendant described for police that this particular night, January 12th, 2021, oh no, that was a very different game. He described it as a light night, a something to do night, and that he, the defendant, lost all he had on him, which was only $2,600 in cash. In fact, the defendant told police that he and Andrew only played just a few hours on January 12th, and that he left Georgetown approximately 12 o'clock midnight. When he left, Andrew stayed behind and did not walk out with him. This defendant, you will hear, was adamant with detectives about the following information. He said, "I never gave Andrew a ride," and would ask if Andrew had been in his car that night at all. He said, quote, "Not at all." Detectives asked him, "Do you remember what you did the next day?" And you will hear the defendant just simply say no. The evidence will show that during this interview, there was a break. And during that break, ladies and gentlemen, coincidentally, Detective Lowe and Detective McGonigal received a call from another officer who had been on the traffic stop and said, "Hey, do you know that there was a large piece of carpet that was cut out of the back of that Yukon?" Well, now armed with this information, they went back in and spoke to the defendant, who described to them, that's how it came. Hold on to that thought when you're evaluating the credibility of this defendant's statement. Police specifically asked the defendant when the last time the Yukon vehicle was cleaned, and he said, quote, "You mean like a car wash? I don't know, maybe a couple days ago." And he continued saying that the quick car wash just vacuumed it out. The defendant volunteered, "I don't think it's ever been detailed. It's pretty clean." The evidence will show you that a second big break came in this investigation about 3 days later. Armed with what they knew about the interior of that Yukon and all of the inconsistent statements that the defendant had given, police, Detective Lowe, got a search warrant to search that 2011 Yukon vehicle. And the evidence is going to show you that it was processed by two crime scene investigators, Sergeant Mark Stanley and Officer Samuel Fearnow from the Lansing Police Department, and this was done on February 1st of 2021. You will hear testimony from those officers. You're going to see extensive evidence from this crime scene process, scene photographs, items that were seized in the car. You're going to see all of that as admitted evidence in this case. Officer Stanley is going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that immediately upon processing the vehicle, he said it smelled like cleaning products when he got closer inside. And he's going to say that it was very clean inside. And he's going to corroborate that under the floor mat in the back passenger seat, he observed a piece of carpet that had been cut and removed from the back of the car. And he's going to tell you that that cut appeared recent because there was no fraying on the edges. As he processed further, Officer Stanley, I want to read this so I make sure I'm correct on this. Officer Stanley observed what appeared to be blood in the following areas: on the carpeting, on the frame of the front passenger seat, and on the edge of the center console. They also observed more blood on the carpeting under the front passenger seat. What they decided to do was remove the front passenger seat from the interior of the vehicle so they could check. And when they did that, they saw suspected blood that had soaked into the tracking on where that front passenger seat was located. Officer Stanley thought, if there's this much blood that has seeped down into the carpeting, into the frames, let's cut the seat to see if anything had seeped through the exterior cover. And what did they find? You're going to hear and see evidence that they found evidence of extensive blood that had soaked and seeped in under the seat cover in the front passenger seat. To confirm their suspicions that this was in fact blood, they tested it with different products. They used something called hemosticks, which reacts positively with human blood. and they used a technique called Blue Star, where they spray this spray all over areas, and it will react with blood. If there is blood there, reacting chemicals in the blood, and you're going to see the results of that. You're going to see that car lit up like a Christmas tree, and that passenger seat especially lit up, positive reacting with the Blue Star for the presence of blood. You will hear that CSI officers took numerous swabs from there for DNA processing, for blood processing, which were later sent to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab. In addition to positive signs of suspected blood all throughout the interior compartment of that vehicle, officers observed one area that was consistent with a bullet damage or bullet defect, and that was located right on the rubber molding and the metal portion adjacent to the passenger side. Lethal opportunity and action. Based on all of this investigation culminating with this big break with CSI, detectives now knew the following. One, Andrew Watson, together with a substantial amount of cash, had disappeared on January 12, 2021. Two, Andrew Watson was last seen together with this defendant, Willie James. Three, CSI had now found evidence of a violent confrontation, an event which had occurred likely with a gunshot inside the defendant, Willie James Jr.'s vehicle. There will be more. A third big break in this case came, ladies and gentlemen, about a month later on March 3rd of 2021. On that date, a citizen in Lansing was taking out her recyclables when she noticed a plastic garbage bag discarded on her lawn. That plastic garbage bag appeared to contain a number of cellular phones. She called the police right away, and you're going to hear testimony from Officer Ben Brandenburg, who responded and got that bag. He's going to tell you that he opened the bag, and what did he find inside? He found 3 cellular telephones. He found a pair of white surgical gloves, and he found a ripped half of a $20 bill. And all of these items were soaked with a red substance consistent with blood. Suspecting that these might be related to a violent crime, he gave them over to one of our CSI officers, Officer Stanley, who took DNA and blood swabs from the phones and the bag and the ripped bill inside. And after he finished his processing, he gave it over to Detective Lowe, and on a strong hunch, she knew it. This has something to do with Andrew. This has something to do with Andrew. So armed with that, she took Andrew's phone number, she powered up those phones, and she called those phones, and guess what you're going to hear? 2 of those phones in the bag rang. These were Andrew's phones, discarded in a plastic bag, soaked with blood, with a pair of surgical gloves. You're going to hear that evidence from the car, the biological swabs, was taken to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab and processed for DNA. And what you're going to hear is that the swabs of the blood from the rear passenger floor, the front passenger seat, the front passenger door, and the front seat fabric stain, all of those matched the DNA profile of our missing person, Andrew Watson, by what is called very strong support, the highest DNA percentage match you will hear that you can have. You can hear that evidence of the biological swabs that was taken from the recovered phones and the surgical gloves. Those were also taken to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab. And what's going to be the result? You're going to hear that the DNA profile from the blood on the phone and the gloves matched the DNA profile of Andrew Watson with very strong support. You're going to hear that one of Andrew's fingerprints was matched to one of the phones inside of that bag. And you're going to hear that DNA profiles from the wearer ID portion of the gloves. That means swabs taken from the area that you wear that touches your skin. You're going to hear that those DNA swabs on the surgical gloves and that bloody bag containing Andrew's phones, those match the DNA profile of this defendant, Willie James Jr., by very strong support. What you'll hear in this case as we enter the final phase of our theory, which is cover-up, is that not only did the direct and circumstantial evidence point directly to this defendant as the person that had caused Andrew's violent death on or about January 12th of 2021, but police found evidence of defendant's obvious intent to cover up his lethal conduct. Remember when we talked about his statement, and what you're going to hear in his statement, and the defendant said the car's never been detailed? Well, guess what? When crime scene investigators processed the car, and you're going to see this evidence, they found a sticker affixed to the door that said spotless. And what Detective Lowe was able to determine is that Spotless is a detailing shop in the city of Lansing. And of course, she investigated it. And you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that this defendant, Willie James, had that Yukon vehicle fully detailed at Spotless Detailing on January 14th of 2021. We expect you're going to hear from the owner of Spotless, Mr. Van Wormer, and he's going to describe that detailing procedure to you, what happened, what information he received, and you're going to see video of both the defendant and the Yukon at Spotless getting detailed. But that's not all. You're going to hear that because of that investigation, what detective learned was that Spotless was the second detailing that the defendant got on his car. The evidence is going to show you in this case that the defendant got the car detailed the first time on January 13th, 2021 at 1 p.m., only 13 hours after the defendant claims to have left Andrew Watson at Georgetown. 2 full details on an automobile within 36 hours. There is going to be so much evidence of cover up in this case, and we will argue to you that this evidence is directly probative of the defendant's consciousness of guilt. His consciousness of guilt as the perpetrator of the violent and lethal action that caused the death of Andrew Watson. A violent death that you will be instructed is properly prosecuted within Ingham County, Michigan. Relationships, sudden extreme disappearance, lethal opportunity, and cover-up. All of those will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that it was the defendant, Willie James Jr., who murdered Andrew Watson II on January 12th of 2021. And that murder was intentional, deliberate, and premeditated. And at the close of this case, when the people stand before you again during our summation, we are going to be asking you to hold this defendant accountable for removing this man off the face of the earth, accountable for murdering Andrew on or about January 12th of 2021. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the defendant opening at this time.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
You may proceed when you're ready.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Jared Austin, and along with Mr. Luke Goodrich, we have the privilege and honor of standing before you to represent Mr. Willie James Jr. And this is our opportunity to kind of explore and go over with you not only a preview of what we expect you will see or not see in this case, but to present to you our theory of the case as well. And I believe this is a case of missed opportunity and confirmation bias. Now, you've already heard kind of a thorough list of evidence that you will see or be presented to you during this trial. And the people have discussed what they believe that evidence will show or prove to you. However, there are some additional things that I would like to preview for you as well that I believe will come out as evidence during the course of this trial. Yes, you will hear that Mr. James had an interview with law enforcement. Were critical admissions made? Sure. One of those critical admissions, you will learn, is that other people had access to and used his car. And not just used his car, but had access to and used his car around the same time period that we are discussing here. the same time period that Mr. Watson went missing and was last seen. You will learn specifically from that interview that Mr. James told them that his son used his car. He gave them a specific name, and that Mr. James's son and his friends sometimes got wild. You will also learn that law enforcement did not do any type of contemporaneous follow-up into that, either in the days or the weeks after Mr. James told them that. And here is where I believe the confirmation bias comes in. I believe the evidence will show that law enforcement had such tunnel vision that, well, it was the primary vehicle that Mr. James used, and because of the forensic evidence that they have previewed for you that was found in the car and the subsequent trips to the detailing shops, that they concluded that not only was Mr. Watson murdered, but it had to be Mr. Willie James Jr. and Mr. Willie James Jr. alone. They had closed off their minds to even the possibility that it could have been someone else that used or had access to that vehicle. And perhaps, just perhaps, there was another explanation as to why he was making these attempts at trying to get his car clean. And they want you to believe that that demonstrates a consciousness of guilt. Perhaps, but not a consciousness of guilt of murder. Just maybe, there's another explanation. And I believe the evidence will bear that out. An explanation that is just as reasonable at a minimum, or just as plausible for the one that they are asking you to believe. I believe that the evidence will show that at a minimum, there is an equal, if not more rational explanation for Mr. James' behavior in the days after Mr. Watson's disappearance, and for the DNA evidence that they believe will prove to you his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. I believe the evidence will show that they failed to look into any other possibilities or suspects, and that they failed to consider that the evidence they had might lead them down a different path. Those are the missed opportunities that I'm speaking of, and that is a confirmation bias that I'm referring to. Now, you've heard a lot already about what the evidence will show and what evidence will be presented to you. And I'm going to talk a little bit to you now about what the evidence will not show. As we've already discussed, this is a murder case where we do not have a body. You will not hear testimony from any medical examiner or anyone else, for that matter, that will be able to tell you about the cause or the manner of Mr. Watson's death, the approximate time of his death, the instrumentation or method of that death. Evidence that you would expect to see and normally would see in a case like this. You're not going to hear any credible evidence that Mr. James ever confessed to killing Mr. Watson, either to private citizens or to law enforcement or social media, nothing like that. You will not hear from any witnesses that Mr. James and Mr. Watson ever had disputes or arguments over the various high-stakes card games that they played, either over the winnings or over the money. The fact that Mr. Watson may have left that night with a large sum of money, or even that Mr. James, a week or two later, was pulled over and found to have a large sum of money, would not be anything suspect or unusual for either of them, because they engaged in these types of high-stakes poker games. Sometimes Mr. James would win, Sometimes Mr. Watson would live. So whether or not either one of them had large sums of cash on them at any particular points in time would not be anything either unusual or suspicious in nature. You're not going to hear any evidence that Mr. James had threatened to kill Mr. Watson in the days or the weeks leading up to his disappearance, or he was plotting some kind of revenge or had a vendetta against him, or he had a score that he was going to settle with him. Nothing like that. And that is important because you will receive an instruction that reasonable doubt comes not just from the evidence, but from the lack of evidence. Evidence that you would expect to see, but in fact, you will not see. Not only will the evidence presented to you in this case lead you to conclude that there is reasonable doubt, but the lack of evidence, the evidence that we do not have, that you will not see, that you will not hear, will lead you to that conclusion as well. I believe the evidence is simply not going to show you what the people are claiming that it will show you. Because keep in mind something, even if the evidence convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Watson is dead, or even if the evidence shows you that night that he died, either that night or the early morning hours into January the 13th of 2021, the evidence will certainly not show you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. James is the one responsible for it. And that's extremely important because that is a critical element, a necessary ingredient to the recipe that they have to prove to you. And they will not be able to do that, and I believe the evidence will bear that out. What I do believe is that once you consider all the evidence, not just the evidence that we have, but the evidence that we do not have, that will lead you to a conclusion that there is reasonable doubt that Mr. James murdered Andrew Watson II. And even if you conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Watson is dead, which you may very well do that. I'm not saying anything to the contrary to that. The evidence may very well convince you of that. But even if that is the case, the evidence and the lack of evidence will never show beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. James is in any way, shape, or form responsible for that death. The burden of proof, ladies and gentlemen, rests right at this table over here. It'll never move. It'll never shift. It'll never change. Mr. James walked into this courtroom an innocent man. He sits at that table an innocent man. And I'm convinced when it's all said and done, he's going to walk out of those doors the same way he came in. Because the evidence will show that there is a reasonable doubt in this case. The evidence will show that he is not guilty of this charge of open murder. And I am so confident of that, that when this trial is over and after all the evidence has been presented, you've seen and heard from all the witnesses and any of the other evidence that's been presented, I'm going to have an opportunity to come back to you and speak to you once again. And I'm going to ask that you return a verdict of not guilty. Until then, I ask that you keep an open mind and that you pay very close attention to all the witnesses and the evidence that you hear, and that you hold them to their burden of proof. And I have the utmost confidence that you will. Thank you.
At this time, I think we need to take a brief break.
Whatever works for the court, Your Honor. People are ready to proceed at the court's pace. Thank you.
Well, let me ask the jury, are you ready for a break? No? All right, you don't want to break, let's go.
Thank you. People call Aquilina Watson to the witness stand.
Before we begin the council.
All right, we're gonna take 15 minutes, thank you. Everyone is present, maybe call back the jurors.
Yes, Your Honor.
Jurors, please.
Rise.
Thank you. You may be seated. Counsel, your witness.
Thank you. People again call Aquilina Watson to the witness stand.
Good morning, ma'am. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. You may have a seat. Right.
Please, my
Brian,
name is Ken.
yeah, Brian's gonna come and help you. Would be too comfortable. Is it too high for you or you're all right? We can
It's
adjust it.
kind of high.
Yeah,
My feet not touching the floor.
yeah. We're gonna fix it for you. All right.
You wanna stand up real quick, so way I'm not messing with the dress there.
That might be a little low, but let's check it out. Is that good for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we can adjust the microphone. We fix that for her, please. All right. Ma'am, please state and spell your name for the record.
Otelia Watson, Oteliawatson.
Ma'am, if you need a break, let us know. If you don't understand a question, let counsel know. I need you to say words that could be found in a dictionary, not just nodding or saying, "Mhm." If you do that, we all do that. We'll remind you because we need to make a record and the court reporter is not allowed to guess. And if there's an objection, please do not answer the question until I've made a ruling whether or not you can. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, and you can ignore me and talk to counsel and the jury. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Watson, how old are you, please?
67,
And what is your date of birth?
September 4th, 1958.
Ms. Watson, I want to direct your attention to the time of January 2021. Do you remember that time?
Yes.
Ms. Watson, did you live in Lansing in January of 2021?
Yes.
How long prior to January of 2021 had you lived in Lansing?
I can't think of the amount of years now. I can give you the date that I moved to Lansing.
When did you move to Lansing?
May of 1978.
You've been in Lansing a long time, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in January of 2021, did you live in a house in Lansing or an apartment?
A house.
And without telling us the address, what side of town was that house on, please?
South.
Who did you live with in January of 2021?
My husband, Andrew Senior.
How old was Andrew Senior in January of 2021? Well, let me ask you
He's
this.
72 now.
Very good. I was going to ask you that. So Mr. Watson Senior is 72 now?
Yes.
All right. And how long had you and Mr. Watson Senior been, or how long have you been married?
49 years.
So I want to talk about some other people in your family in January of 2021. Did you know a person by the name of Andrew Watson Jr.?
It's Andrew Watson II.
Andrew Watson II, I apologize, ma'am. Did you know somebody by the name of Andrew Watson II?
Yes,
And who was Andrew Watson II?
my son.
What was your son, Andrew Watson, II's date of birth, please?
February 23rd, 1982.
Do you know how old Andrew was in January of 2021 when he disappeared?
38.
How many children do you and your husband have?
We have 3 together, and my husband has an older daughter.
The 3 that you have together, can you describe, do you have daughters or do you have sons?
I have 2 daughters and 1 son.
And your husband Andrew, he has a daughter or a son?
He has 3 daughters, 1 son.
Very good, okay. Now, your son Andrew Watson II, where did he fall in line of the children, please?
He's the middle child.
All right. I want to show you some photos, please, and ask if you can identify some people for us.
Okay.
I want to first approach you and show you what's been marked into evidence in this case as People's Proposed Exhibit number 1. Can you just tell us what this photograph is, please?
It's a picture of the whole family together.
And do you know when this photograph was taken?
September of 2020.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately show what your family looked like on that date in September 2020?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move admission, please, of People's Proposed Exhibit number 1.
Any objection or voir dire?
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
Name the overhead back, please.
Brian?
It's on its way. Was it? All right, ma'am, showing you this photograph. So I'm going to move across with my pen and ask if you can identify who some people are in this photograph, please. Who's that person right there?
Myself,
Who's that gentleman on the end there, please?
Andrew Senior,
Who's that young lady there?
his daughter Andrea.
And how old was Andrea? Or let me ask it easier for you. How old is Andrea now?
She's 49 now.
Who's standing next to Andrea, please?
Antoinette,
How old is Antoinette now?
she's 48.
Who's this woman on the end, please, on the right of the photograph?
Janae,
And how old is Janae now, please?
38.
And this gentleman in the center, who is that?
Andrew II.
All right. So this group of children right here, these 3 daughters and a son, that's not all of your family, it sounds like. Is that correct?
That's all of our children.
That's all of your children together?
Yes.
Very good. What was this event that we see photographed here in September of 2021 then?
Andrea came to visit.
Where did Andrea live when she came to visit in September of 2021?
Memphis, Tennessee.
I want to talk a little bit more about Andrew, please, and show you some photographs of him. I want to show you what's been marked into evidence as People's Proposed Exhibit number 2 and People's Proposed Exhibit number 3. First of all, do you recognize what's shown in People's Exhibit number 2?
Yes.
And what is shown in People's Exhibit number 2?
Andrew II and Andrew III.
Is Andrew the third, Andrew the second son?
Yes.
When was this photograph taken, if you recall?
In 2008.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict what your son looked like in 2008?
Yes.
And showing you what's been marked into evidence as People's Proposed Exhibit number 3. Tell us what we're looking at People's number 3.
Yes, Andrew II and his girlfriend at the time he was murdered. That's her daughter, Mackenzie.
And does that photograph fairly and accurately depict Andrew at the time this photograph was taken?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move admission at this time of People's Proposed Exhibits 2 and 3.
Any objection or voir dire?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. 2 and 3 are admitted.
All right, so as we move forward, I'm going to be showing you those photographs with some questions. I want to start about your own personal relationship with Andrew. How would you describe your relationship with your son, Andrew II, back in January of 2021?
We've always been very close.
How would you describe Andrew as a son, ma'am?
He was a good son
When you say he was a good son, why do you describe him as a good son, please?
because he had a good heart. He was always helping people, and all the kids loved him. All the grandkids loved him. It just people that meet him, they just gravitate to him because he had a good heart, and he helped a lot of people in Lansing. Like if he sees somebody with old dirty clothes or something, he would take them and buy them clothes, take them, get them a hotel room so they can take a shower, buy them food. He just certain areas in Lansing, he would go and buy a lot of food and have barbecues just for the community. And people, everybody that I've even met since he's been gone, they just keep telling me what a great person he was.
How often did you and your husband see Andrew around January of 2021?
During that time, it was mostly daily.
So when you say he would see him daily, where would you typically see your son daily?
At my house,
Why would Andrew come over to your house on a daily basis?
because I had surgery. So he was mostly coming to check on me or check to see if I needed anything from the store. But even before I had the surgery, we still seen him at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Let's talk about the surgery that you referenced. Do you remember when you had that surgery?
I had on January 5th, 2021.
So about a week before you last saw Andrew, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. So you had it on January 5th. In between that period of time, between January 5th and January 11th, Andrew was coming over daily, ma'am?
yes.
When he would come over daily, what types of things would he do to help you out, please?
On January 5th, when he came, he prepared food for me. He set up my bed for me to be able to get in the bed, even though I was instructed to sleep in a recliner chair. But he said, I can set your bed up so you can be able to get in your bed and still be reclined. But after I went to lock the door behind him when he was leaving that night, and I tried to lay down, it didn't work. So I had to move everything back into the living room and get in the recliner chair.
When he would come by daily between the 5th and say the 11th, when you last saw him, how long typically would he stay during the day?
Sometimes he would stay for a few hours. Sometimes he stayed for minutes.
When you and Andrew were together, what kind of things would you do together, ma'am?
He was always with, well, when I was in good health, no surgeries or nothing. He would always want me to make him like fruit trays. His favorite thing used to be a peach cobbler. And I'm reminiscing on that because his birthday coming up, and that's what he always wanted for his birthday, a peach cobbler. And then he got more into eating healthy, so he wanted the fruit trays. But before his birthday came in 2021, he changed everything all around. He said he wanted a caramel cake because I had made one for my brother, and he tasted and he said he never thought it tasted so good. So that's what he was wanting for his birthday that year.
Sound like he liked his mother's cooking, is that right?
Yes,
All right. Now, before you had that surgery, well, let me ask you this. What type of surgery did you have on January 5th of 2020?
it was a rotator cuff surgery.
On your shoulder?
Yes, on my right shoulder.
And as you're sitting here today, we see that you have some sort of sling on your other arm, is that right?
I just had rotator cuff surgery on the left arm.
Okay, how are you doing after that?
It's painful, but
Are you in some pain today?
yes,
Okay. So I want to talk about before you had your surgery on January 5th of 2021. How often would your son Andrew come over on at that period of time?
when was it? He was coming like every other day or so, at least 3 to 4 times a week, because he would bring his kids over a lot. And because we have a big yard, so they like playing in the yard. It didn't matter if it was warm or cold or whatever. They just like being outside, climbing trees, sitting on top of the shed. They are climbers. So we had room for them to just enjoy themselves.
When Andrew wasn't coming over the house 2 to 3 times a week before your surgery, did you ever talk to him on the phone, for example, text or call him
Yes, mostly daily.
daily? And what kind of things would you check in with him about?
If he didn't call me, I would call him just to see what he was doing, where he was at, and if the kids was with him or if he had taken them home.
If I use the term a loving relationship, would you agree that you had a loving relationship with your son?
Yes, very loving.
And have you always had a loving relationship with your son, Andrew II?
Yes.
Did Andrew have any nicknames that he went as from you or anybody else?
My oldest daughter named him Bubba before he was even born.
And what did you refer to Andrew II as?
Bubba,
Okay, so when you saw him, he was your Bubba, is that correct?
yes,
All right. You talked about that period between the 5th and the 11th. He was coming over every day to check on you and help you, is that right?
yes,
Before your surgery, did Andrew ever help you and your husband out in other ways?
yes. He was the only person that cleaned the gutters because he didn't want his dad on the roof. He would help cut grass, rake leaves, shovel snow. Anything that need to be done.
When was the last time that, that Bubba or Andrew II lived with you?
I think when he was 18,
So he was a fully grown-up person living on his own, right?
yes,
And though he lived on his own, he would come over and see you and spend time with you in the manner you described, is that right?
yes.
What about financial assistance? Did Andrew ever help you out financially, either before your surgery or after your surgery?
Well, I don't know if you would say helping out financially, but we would go to the casinos and I didn't have to take no money out of my pocket. He furnished all my slot machine money.
Sure.
And if I lost, then he would replace everything that I lost.
What about if you needed items, household items, groceries?
If I needed something, he would get it.
Okay.
Anything I needed, he would get it.
So we see on this photograph, people exhibit 1, we see Andrew with his 3 sisters. Is that correct, man?
Yes,
What type of relationship did Andrew have with his 3 sisters?
he loved his sisters.
Do you know if he spent any time with any of his
Yes.
sisters?
He spent more time with Antoinette because she has 2 girls that played with his kids.
I'm just showing you, this is Antoinette right here.
Yes.
Okay, so continue on. You said he spent more time with Antoinette. How come?
Yes, because his kids played with her kids a lot, so they went to her house more. He would go to Janae's house to check on her daughter Deja, because Deja's the only child. Most of the time, he just would go pick her up to take her wherever he was taking his kids, like if they was going to Chuck E. Cheese or an arcade or anything. He would always have her with him, or if they was going shopping, he took her with him.
Your 2 daughters, Antoinette and Deja, were they local here in the Lansing area?
Deja's my granddaughter. It's Janae.
Janae, I misspoke. Antoinette and Janae, did they live locally here in the Lansing area?
Yes,
All right. And it sounds like he would see them fairly frequently, correct?
yes,
If I use the term a loving relationship, do you think he had a loving relationship with them?
yes.
All right, what about your 3rd daughter? She lived out of state somewhere?
He mostly talked to her on the phone, unless we were going to visit her or she was coming to Michigan. Because last time we went to her house, for her daughter's graduation, he had went with us for her daughter's graduation.
When your oldest daughter would come into town, would you all get together and visit at your house? like you
Yes.
see in this photograph?
Yes,
Okay.
and sometimes like if he knew of something going on, because they all loved John's cider mill, Uncle John's cider mill, so they would go out there and do the trails and have cider and all that.
What about Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays, things like that? Would your family get together?
Yes, it was always at my house.
What were your Christmas traditions in your house?
All the kids be there, open gifts, and then we'd all have dinner together. And after dinner, Andrew always had to take a nap. He never just came and visited and went home. He'd go home like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And on the occasions, whoever his girlfriend was would come too.
The Christmas before Andrew disappeared, which would have been December of 2020, was Andrew at your house as usual on Christmas, December 2020?
Yes. Yes,
And was he typically at your house for every Christmas as you described?
yes.
All right. So you mentioned that Andrew had children. I want to talk about that. How many children did Andrew actually have?
5,
Were those all with the same person or different people?
2 different people.
So with the first set, how many children did he have with the first woman that he was with?
With Crystal, they have 3 kids.
All right, the person's name, Crystal. Can you give us her full name, please?
Crystal Bond,
How many children did Andrew have with Crystal Vaughn?
3.
How old are those children, please?
17, 16, and 12.
Are those boys or girls?
The two oldest are boys, the girl is 12.
Is Crystal Vaughn still alive?
No, she's not.
When did Crystal Vaughn pass away?
October 8th, 2019,
And when Miss Vaughn died, did she die in Lansing or somewhere else?
Lansing.
Was Andrew with her when she died? Meaning, were they together when she died?
No,
Where were Andrew's children, or with whom were Andrew's children? Let me say that again. With whom were Andrew's children by Crystal Vaughn living at the time Andrew disappeared in January of 2021?
Crystal's mother,
And what's her name, please?
Deborah Carter.
All right. Now, Andrew had two additional children.
Yes,
Who was the mother, or who is the mother of those two additional children?
Tamisha Wilson.
How many-
What's the name?
Tamisha Wilson.
Can you spell Tamisha for us, please, if you know?
I'm not sure.
I believe, and I'll double check for the record, but I believe it's Tameisha Wilson, common spelling. How old were Andrew's children with Tamisha Wilson?
17 and 14.
Was Andrew still with Tamisha Wilson?
No,
So understanding that Andrew was no longer with the moms of his children, one was deceased and one he was no longer with, was Andrew an active father for his children?
yes,
How would you describe Andrew as a father, please?
he was a very good father
What leads you to believe that he was a very good father?
because he took care of all 5 of his kids. He spent lots of time with them. He made sure they got to school every day. He picked them up from school every afternoon, and they went to like 4 different schools. But everybody got to school on time. Everybody got picked up. Everybody got fed. He took them home when it was time for them to take a bath to get ready for bed.
When Andrew would interact with his children, what would his interactions with his children be like?
He was like a big kid with them until they started getting older. And because he was, I guess, because he was a new parent, he always said he would never discipline his kids.
He would never discipline his kids.
He was just talk to them. But when they started, like, I think one of them said something back to a staff at school, and he went to conference for that, and then he was like, no, you can't be in school disrespecting a grown-up. If you can't disrespect a grown-up out of school, you can't disrespect them at school. So they went from that to they started getting put on punishment for different things.
So it sounds like Andrew was active in all 5 of his children's life. Is that correct?
Yes,
We've used this term loving relationship. Did you think that Andrew had a loving relationship with his 5 children?
very loving.
Would Andrew ever leave his children without telling them
No.
where he was going? Okay. Then you've given us a really good kind of general overview of your son Andrew's relationship. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about what type of a person he was and your interactions with him?
Like I said, he was a great son. It was just anybody, if he befriended you, then you was just like family to him. And he's been like that all his life, even as a little kid.
All right.
Because he would always bring home kids and say, introduce them as his brothers or sisters or cousins. And it would be people that I never met. And I'm like, you can't bring home all these strangers claiming them as your relatives. He said, but Mom, they're good people. They're good people. You have to be nice to people.
That's just the type of person that he was.
Mhm.
All right, man, we've talked in this case where I've talked to the jury about something called relationships. It sounds like Andrew had a very good relationship with you and your husband.
Yes,
Sounds like he had a very good relationship with his sisters.
yes,
Sounds like he had a very good relationship with his children.
yes,
And it sounds like he had a very good relationship with other people, friends and people in the community. Is that all accurate?
yes.
Okay.
He also had a very good relationship with God because he was very spiritual.
Andrew was a daily part of your life and the people around whose life. Isn't that right, man?
Yes,
I want to talk about the last time that you saw Andrew. Do you remember the last time you saw him?
yes,
I want to refer you to the date of January 11th of 2021. Can you tell the jury, Ms. Watson, did you see your son on that day?
yes, I did.
Where did you see your son that day?
at my home.
We know that was the period of time you were recovering from your shoulder surgery,
Yes,
and Andrew had been coming over every day. Is that right?
yes,
Did he come over kind of as usual that particular January 11th?
yes,
And if I told you that was a Monday, does that sound right to you?
yes.
Okay. Why did Andrew come over on January 11th, Monday of 2021?
Well, he had called me earlier and let me know that he was going to come in and visit me that day, but he wanted to wait until the mail ran because he was expecting his income tax.
Did there come a time when he arrived over your house that afternoon?
Yes, when he called me in the afternoon and he said, "Did the mail run yet?" I said, "Yeah, the truck is out there now." He said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna come now because I'm in your neighborhood, so I'll be over there in a few minutes."
Do you recall what time he got to your house that day?
It was like late afternoon, like maybe 3, 4 at the latest.
How long did Andrew stay at your house that afternoon?
Probably about 30 to 40 minutes or so.
Do you know what, if anything, you did in that 30 to 40-minute period when Andrew was there that day?
Well, it was Andrew, myself, and Andrew Senior. We sit in the living room and we was just talking. Because when he came in, he brought all the mail in. And he told me that he did get his income tax. But we just sit around and talk. And he kept asking me, did I need anything? And I said, I don't need anything right now, but my juice is getting low. So you can pick up me some juice whenever you go to a store. He said, do you need it today? I said, no, I don't need it today because I'm not out yet. He said, well, I'll pick it up tomorrow.
What
I said, that's fine.
What kind of juice is that?
Orange juice.
Gotcha. So you said that's fine, you can pick it up tomorrow, right?
Yes,
All right, when Andrew came over that day, I want to ask you a few questions about him. Was he with anybody or was he alone?
he was alone.
When you observed his physical condition, did everything physically appear to be okay with Andrew that day?
Yes,
Did he appear to be his normal self?
yes,
And what about his emotional demeanor, how he presented? Was he acting normally?
yeah, he was normal.
Did he seem to be okay?
Yes,
Nothing that you observed as his mother out of the ordinary?
no,
So you had this conversation after about 30, 40 minutes, and you said you needed for him to pick up some juice next time he was at the store, is that right?
yes,
Okay. Did there come a time when your son Andrew left on January 11th?
yes.
And do you recall what your last interaction was with him that day, man?
When he was getting ready to go, he walked over to the chair his dad was sitting in. He gave his dad a hug and said, I love you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And then when he walked away from his dad, he came to where I was sitting and he hugged me and kissed me on my cheek and said, I love you and I'll see you tomorrow.
Did Andrew leave the house at that time?
Yes, well, he started to leave and then I said, you got money about to fall out your pocket. And his dad said, I told you about walking around with all that money on you like that. Stop carrying money like that, because no, anything could happen. And he said, oh, I just had it in my pocket because I was supposed to go play poker today.
When you saw money in Andrew's pocket, how much money did you see? A little money or a lot of money?
It was a lot, because it was like, he tried to fold it in half, but it was like this bulging out of the top of his sweatpants pocket.
Was that money loose or was it bound together in some fashion?
No, it was loose.
And it was bulging out of the top of his sweatpants pocket?
Yes,
So much so that you observed it and made a comment, right?
yes.
What did he do after you brought that to his attention?
He pushed it back down into his pocket.
All right. Do you know how Andrew got to your house on the 11th?
He drove.
Do you know what type of car he had on January 11th, 2021?
No, because I never looked outside.
But he drove himself there that day?
Yes,
So after you made this comment about the money being exposed in his pocket, he put it back in his pocket, did he leave at that time?
yes,
All right. Did Andrew come back to your house the next day with the juice you had asked him to pick up?
no. He texted me the next morning and said that he hadn't went to the store yet, but he was going a little later and he'll see me later.
Did you see him on the date of January 12th, ma'am?
No, I did not.
Did you again speak to him by phone, either text or call on the 12th, ma'am?
No,
Did it go then to the next day, January 13th, ma'am?
Yes,
Did you hear from your son Andrew January 13th?
no,
Did Andrew come visit you on the 13th?
no,
Did he text or call you on the 13th?
no, he did not.
Ms. Watson, did there come a time when you became concerned that Andrew had not brought the juice back to you?
I called his phone on the 13th, but I didn't get an answer.
And why did you call his phone on the 13th?
His girlfriend Christina had called me and told me that he didn't come home Tuesday night from playing poker. So I called to check to see where he was at, but I didn't get an answer.
Did Andrew have a cellular phone in January of 2021?
Yes,
How many cellular phones did he carry?
I think he had two that he used, and he had a third one that he used with his kids to FaceTime.
Did you have a particular number that you called Andrew on every time, or did you alternate numbers?
No, I only called one phone.
Do you know off the top of your head what that phone number was? If you don't, that's fine.
I don't remember.
All right. So getting back to your story, you hadn't heard from Andrew on the 12th, and now it's the 13th, and you spoke to somebody named Christina. Is that correct?
Yes,
Who was Christina in Andrew's life on the 13th?
she was his girlfriend.
Was Andrew living with Christina at that time?
Yes,
All right. Did you know Christina?
yes,
How did Christina get in touch with you to tell you Andrew hadn't come home on the 12th?
she called me.
Did you speak to Christina on the phone?
Yes,
Do you know if this was in the morning, afternoon, or evening of the 13th?
I'm not sure what time of day it was.
Sometime on the 13th. Is that yes, ma'am?
Yes,
And in response to that information, you did something. Is that correct?
yes, I tried calling him.
All right. And when you called Andrew's phone, did you call the phone you normally call?
Yes,
And what happened when you called that number?
I didn't get an answer, it just rang.
When you say it didn't get an answer, he didn't pick up or it didn't answer at all?
No, it rang, but he didn't pick up.
Did a voicemail pick up or anything like that?
I can't remember if there was a voicemail on it or not.
Now we're at the 13th, which would be Wednesday. Is that accurate, ma'am?
Yes,
Never heard from Andrew back on the 13th, did you, ma'am?
no,
Never saw Andrew on the 13th, correct?
no,
Now we're into the day of the 14th. I would imagine you did not hear from Andrew on the 14th.
no.
Are you concerned by this point in time?
Yeah, I'm wondering where he's at because the one thing really made me more concerned. Christina told me that he never stayed out all night. She said he always come home. He might come home later than what he originally told her he was coming home, but he always came home.
So now it's the 14th. Christina has provided you this information and you're starting to get concerned, it sounds like.
Yes,
All right.
and then she called me again on the 14th. She still hadn't heard nothing from him. I had been continuing calling his phone, but I can't remember if it rang that day. Because I remember the phones, it did stop ringing. After I had called so many times, it wasn't ringing anymore. So I was thinking maybe his battery had died.
I'm going to back you up for a second. When you spoke to Christina now the second time, what was Christina acting like on the phone? Did she appear concerned?
She was nervous.
What about how she was acting led you to believe she was nervous or worried?
She was crying and she was real emotional and upset.
So she seemed really nervous by this point in time.
Yes,
Okay. So now it's the 14th. So Monday has been the 11th, Tuesday the 12th, Wednesday the 13th. Now we're at Thursday the 14th. Is that correct?
yes,
Do you know somebody by the name of Latara Husband?
yes.
Who was Latara Husband?
She was a friend of my son's.
Had Latara and your son, Andrew, ever been involved in a romantic relationship?
I think they had.
Okay. Do you know how long they are involved in a romantic relationship for?
I'm not sure.
Understanding that, ma'am, was she at a minimum a good friend of your son's, Andrew's?
Yes,
Okay. Did there come a point in time when you decided to call Latara Husband?
yes.
When was that in relationship to the 14th, if you can remember?
I'm sure it probably was the 14th that I called her.
Why did you make the decision to contact Latara Husband?
Because anytime I call my son and he don't answer, I just made it a habit of calling her.
Does she know how to get hold of him no matter what?
Because she would say if he don't, even if he didn't answer the phone, she always, for some reason, she always knew where he was at.
So did you talk to Latara?
Yes, I did.
And did you express to her what was going on?
Yes.
And how long do you think you talked to Latara for?
It was only for a few minutes.
When,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
she called me back and she was telling me places that she had went that he normally go when she's with him, but he wasn't at none of those places.
Was it your understanding that Latara had gone looking for him?
Yes.
Right. Was she able to find him?
No.
Was she able to make any contact with him?
No.
She had gone to places that he frequents, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So when Latara told you this, ma'am, well, let me ask you this. Did there come a time when a missing persons report was made on your son, Andrew?
Yes.
And I believe that was the 16th of January?
Yes.
All right. Do you know when Latara provided you this information that she had looked for him and couldn't find him in relationship to the 16th?
She had been looking all the way up until the 16th. And on the 16th is when she came to my house and she was in tears because she couldn't find him. And she said that, I don't know what's going on. Nobody's seen him. Nobody knows where he's at. Nobody can tell me nothing. So she was really concerned. So she started calling people while she was at my house, talking to them. She called like at least 3 different people.
Do you know who she called when she was at your house that day?
Yes.
Tell me who she called. Please.
She called my son's friend Mackenzie. And she talked to Alyssa. And she talked to Willie James.
All right. So had you ever met Mackenzie before?
She said we met, but I don't remember her.
What was her
She
relationship?
said we had met like maybe 10, 15 years before.
Do you know what her relationship to Andrew was at the time, if you know?
She said they was good friends, but
What about Alyssa? What was Andrew's relationship to Alyssa?
I had never heard of Alyssa.
Okay. And then you mentioned a third person by the name of Willie James, is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Watson, did you in January of 2012 know personally a person by the name of Willie James Jr.?
No.
Had you ever met a person by the name of Willie James Jr.?
No.
Had you heard of a person named Willie
Yes,
James?
I had heard his name before.
In what context had you heard Mr. James's name before?
My older sister, Doris Speed, would mention his name because he was dating our younger sister, Lula Nathan, and they had 2 kids together.
So Mr. James has 2 children with your sister, is that correct?
Yes.
So if they were married, that would be your brother-in-law potentially, is that
Yes.
correct? They're not though, correct?
No.
All right. Even though your sister had this relationship and had children with Mr. James, you don't know him personally.
No.
You had never met him before that day.
No.
You did know his name though, correct?
I just knew they called him Will. I never knew his whole name until my sister Doris told me.
So just so I can understand this relationship and define it for the jury, it sounds like Mr. James's children would be Andrew's first cousins, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know if Andrew maintained any type of relationship with his first cousins by Mr. James?
Yes.
What was the nature of that relationship?
They were family. He would even take them shopping and buy them clothes and shoes and stuff.
So if Mr. James Jr. and Andrew's cousin's mom had been married, Mr. James Jr. would be an uncle to your son Andrew, is that correct?
Yes.
Prior to January 16th, the day that we've talked about, did you ever hear your son refer to Mr. James Jr., any type of relationship he had with Mr. James Jr.?
No.
Back in January,
Yes, I did. He would say he was going to play poker with Will.
did you ever refer to him by the name, did you ever hear him refer to the name Unc?
No.
To you, he would refer to him as Will, is that correct?
Yes.
And you knew he played poker with Will?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we're at the point in time in your story where Latara is at your house. She's very upset. She's making phone calls to Mackenzie, Alyssa, and this person you've named as Willie James Jr. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. When she is speaking to Willie James Jr., were you present in the room?
yes,
And did you hear the content of what this individual named Willie James Jr. said during that conversation?
yes, because she had the phone on speaker, everybody she called.
And was your understanding that Mr. James Jr., this person that you described for us, had had some kind of contact with Andrew earlier in the week?
Yes,
What was the nature of that contact that he described?
that he had played poker with him,
On what date, please?
the 12th.
After those phone calls were made in your presence, ma'am, was a decision made to actually file a missing persons report on your son Andrew?
Yes,
Who made that decision?
I did.
Who actually went and made the missing persons report that day?
My husband and myself, but Tara went with us, but it was my husband and myself that talked to the officer
And where did you make that missing persons report, please?
at the precinct on Wise Road.
Did you speak to an officer who was wearing a uniform or a detective?
An officer in the uniform.
You talked to us about two other photographs here. You identified that this was your son with your grandson, Andrew III. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes,
And you identified for us that this was your son with another young woman's child. Is that correct?
yes,
Whose child is that, please?
Christina's.
Christina, the one that called you in a panic when Andrew was home. Is that correct?
Yes,
Right. Ms. Watson, after the 11th of January, when Andrew left to go buy some juice that day, have you ever seen your son, Andrew Watson, after that time?
no,
Have you ever had any contact other than text or phone contact with him after the 12th of January, 2021?
no,
Did Andrew appear for his birthday in February of that year?
no,
Did Andrew attend Christmas with you that year?
no,
Has Andrew attended any birthdays, holidays, family gatherings, Christmases, or otherwise after that date?
no,
All right. Your husband, your son essentially vanished on January 12th of 2021. Is that correct, ma'am?
yes,
And no one in your family, to include your husband, has seen him. Is that accurate?
no one,
Have any of your daughters seen or heard from him?
no,
Have any of those people that you described, friends, girlfriends, heard from him, if you know?
no.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Cross.
Good morning, Ms. Watson.
Good morning.
You testified previously that you had a lot of contact with your son Andrew II. Is that correct?
Yes,
And the type of topics that you used to frequently talk about, was that primarily grandchildren, or what did you talk about with them?
what did I talk about with Andrew?
Yes.
Everyday life, the grandkids, school.
Did you talk about some of his personal relationships with Ms. Sines or other women or anything along those lines?
Sometime.
Okay. Where did you, I guess, closely follow who all your son was dating at that time?
And the only person I knew that he was dating was Christina Sines.
Okay, so he had spoken to you about Ms. Sines, but not like Alyssa Ryan or some other people, correct?
I never heard her name.
Did you, and you stated that one of the things you used to do with Andrew II was to go to the casino together, is that accurate?
Yes,
How often did you do that?
it wasn't like weekly or a set time. It's just whenever I felt like going sometime, I would ask him, did he want to go with me?
Okay, and did your husband go too, or is it just kind
My
of? the two of
husband
you?
went sometime, but he never went with me and Andrew together.
Okay, so Andrew sometimes would take you and sometimes would take your husband, but the three of you usually
He
did.
never took my husband.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood what you said, that you,
That's it. Andrew Senior never went when Andrews is second and I went.
Okay. So,
Like, I would go with Andrew Senior, and then
Okay,
sometime I would go
I
with
got you.
Andrew second.
so you would go with each of them separately, but not together?
Yes.
Okay,
Or if I had people visiting me, he's gone with, like, I had a cousin visit from LA. He went when I went with her. He went when me and my sister went.
and you stated that your son would always pay for you to play at the casino?
Yes,
And so your son always had some extra money on him to essentially, for entertainment purposes like this?
yeah, if we was going somewhere, yeah.
And did you ever discuss, where your son's jobs or that type of thing with him?
No, because I always knew.
Okay, well, where did, Andrew II work during this time, to your knowledge, or?
During January 2021, he always gambled. It was either at the casino or private.
Okay, so you think most of his income was coming from gambling and
During
those
that
type of
time, yes.
activities? So he wasn't working at Meyer or General Motors or anything like that?
No,
Okay, and you said he would often have extra money for his kids or other people who needed extra money?
yes,
One thing, I know you testified about his children and their ages. When you saying like 17, 16, and 12, are you talking about today or are you talking about 5
no,
years
that's
ago?
their ages now.
That's their ages now, okay.
Yes,
So at the time, we have to subtract like 5 from each of those?
yes,
All right, and you stated that on the last time you saw him was the 11th
yes,
of January, that'd be 21, back in 21,
yes,
that he was looking for his income tax check.
yes.
Was that essentially January of 21, would that have been like the COVID checks that the government was mailing out to everybody for like $600 a person, that
Yes.
type of thing? And you said he received it that day,
Yes,
but he wouldn't have had time to cash that or anything?
the check was never cashed. The IRS sent me a letter March of 2022. Well, they sent it to Andrew, but I took it out the mailbox and opened it, but it said that the check had expired because it was never cashed. And they wanted Andrew to contact them so they could reissue the check.
Okay. But you said when he arrived that day, you saw him with a kind of a wad of cash in his pocket,
Yes,
and that concerned you?
yes,
Okay, why were you concerned about that?
because I didn't know if it was gonna fall out before he got outside or fall out after he got outside. So I was just letting him know it looked like it was about to fall out of his pocket.
Were you concerned about that money leading to trouble with other people at all, having that much cash?
No, because he had already told me where he got it from.
And where was that?
He won it on Sunday.
Was that gambling?
Playing poker with Willie James.
Okay. And you stated, and you testified previously that he was carrying that money around to play poker again with
Yes,
Mr. James?
yes,
All right, and you stated that he stopped by for about 30 to 40 minutes on the 11th?
yes.
Did he seem injured or hurt in any way on that occasion?
No,
Did you have a chance to see his car outside to see if it had suffered any damage or anything along those lines?
no, I never looked outside.
And you didn't notice him limping or anything along those
No.
lines? And you stated that when you called him, you always called him on the same phone, correct?
Yes,
But you knew that he had essentially 3 phones?
I've seen him at one time with 3 phones, but most of the time I just seen him with 2. But I knew he had a third phone that he would use to FaceTime with his kids. You couldn't call anybody, but you could use the internet to FaceTime.
Okay, so there wasn't like a phone plan, but you could use it for the internet
Yes,
function, okay. And do you know why he had several phones like this?
because at that time I had 2 phones too.
Okay. And you stated that you had heard the name Willie James. Is it from your younger sister?
My older sister told me the Willie James. My younger sister always called him Will.
Okay, but is your younger sister the one that had dated him?
Yes,
Now, you testified that you'd never really seen him in person, though, is that
no,
accurate?
I've never seen him in person.
So you, like I said, you never met your sister's fairly long-term-ish boyfriend then?
No.
Does she live out of state or locally or?
When she dated him, she lived in Lansing.
Okay, but you still just
But
never,
he was never
Hold on,
at our
hold on.
house when I
Wait,
went
wait,
there.
wait, wait. So I have, when she dated him, she lived in Lansing. Was the answer, and then the next question.
um, so despite the fact that the two of you were living in the same town, you never met her, that particular boyfriend?
No,
Were you and your younger sister close or not really at that time?
yeah.
Which one?
She visited me and I visit her, but I never went to her house and there was a man there.
Okay. And, okay. And you testified that Latara husband was essentially kind of your go-to person to contact if you needed to find Andrew II?
Yes,
And how long ago had they dated? Do you know?
I know it was some years before that, but I don't remember the exact time.
So they've been broken up for a few years, but had
They
they
remained good friends.
dated for several years as well?
I know they did for a little bit. I'm not sure how long.
Okay. But they didn't have any children together?
No,
You testified that Tamisha Wilson is the mother of two of his children, correct?
yes,
Was he still, did he still have any type of dating or friendship relationship with her at that time? Or?
they always had a friendship, but they wasn't dating.
Okay, so they remained friends but weren't dating.
Yes,
Now, you testified that you had been seeing him pretty much every day since your surgery, correct?
yes.
In general, how long was it before you became worried about not hearing from him? Was it uncommon to go at 1 day, 2 days?
By the 13th is when I was getting more worried.
Okay, so that'd be about 2 days since you had seen him at that time.
Yes,
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Redirect.
So I'm clear, ma'am, not only have you not seen Andrew for 2 days by the 13th, but Christina had called you and said she never came home on the 12th, right?
yes.
So did that add to your level of concern?
Yeah, when I started thinking back to it, because she said he never not came home before.
You said something to Mr. Goodrich on cross-examination. I want to clear up with you. Remember your son had a big pile of money in his pocket that you observed?
Yes,
And as his mom, you told him, put that money back down in your pocket, right?
yes,
And you told Mr. Goodrich that your son said that he had won that money from Willie James playing poker on Sunday night. Is that correct?
yes,
The night before? Sunday night?
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Was it ever your experience that he would take off for a couple of days?
No,
So when he was a teenager or anytime he lived with you, you didn't have that experience?
but I guess he called himself running away when he was a kid one time because we was all at work and I just came all the way to the south side to put gas in my older car. And when I was leaving the gas station, I said, well, let me go by the house and check on Bubba, making sure he's getting his schoolwork done. And I went 1 block from the gas station and I seen him in my new car, sitting at the stop sign. And I'm not knowing that's him in my car, I'm looking at the car thinking, oh, they got their car just like mine. They got stripes, the pinstripe just like mine. I wonder if they had the stripe man to do theirs. He turned the corner and drove right past me. And I felt like I was in a dream because I couldn't believe he had taken my car out of the garage. Because I was like, if I wanted to drive my new car in the bad weather, I could have drove it to work. But I drove my old car. So I went home and he was trying to beat me home. And when I was walking up to the house, he pulled in the driveway and opened the garage, put the car back in. And I went in the house and I called my husband because I didn't have a cell phone at the time. And I said, you need to tell your supervisor that you need to leave work right now and come home. He said, what's wrong? I said, I just passed your son driving my new car. And he said, where is he now? I said, he's out there putting it in the garage. He said, well, what did he say? I said, he didn't say nothing. And I'm not gonna say anything to him because right now I can't talk to him. And I don't want to hit him because I might end up in jail. So my husband said, okay, just go back to work. He came home and he said, some told him, don't go to the front door, go to the back. And Andrew II was coming out the back door with his bicycle, which he should have been riding that day anyway. And he just grabbed him up, took him back in the house and sit him down. And he said, he called me and he was like, you know, he a teenager, so he too old to get a whooping. I said, no, he's not. I say, don't tap him up like he's a toddler. Get a belt and whoop his butt. So he did. And after he went back to work, Andrew left the house and went over one of his friend's house. So when we came home, he wasn't home. He didn't come home that night. So we started calling his friend's parents. And one of them said, yes, he's here. I think he's asleep right now. My husband went and picked him up, woke him up and picked him up and brought him back home. And I talked to him and I told him, I said, you did wrong for taking my car. So I don't know why you figure you got to run away. I said, because if you don't want to live at my house, I'm not going to try to force somebody to live in my house that don't want to be here. And he cried and apologized. And I said, yeah, you're saying that now, but it's just going to happen again. Because if it happened again, I'm going to press charges. I said, because I can't leave my house not knowing if my vehicle going to be there or not when I get back. So I said, I'm not going to go through this with you. And he made that promise. But he didn't stick by it. He didn't take my car again, but he took his dad's truck.
So, okay, he had some teenage blips like that, but he never left for days without telling
No.
you. Is that fair?
No,
So that's
because
fair.
the first time he did, when I waited for him to come home and it was getting later in the day, I filed a missing person report back then when he was a little kid, but they started putting up signs and talking to people. But we didn't have to follow through with nothing because my husband brought him home.
So other than those kid things, there was no other time where he was absent without telling you,
Now, sometime we came home, he might not be there, but he would come home.
but he would come home. So you
Yes.
didn't go days without seeing
No.
him. Okay, so he was pretty close to you. He wouldn't worry you.
Yes.
All right, understood. Thank
He didn't
you.
like the fact that I had started. We was walking up to the steps at Everett and he looked in the top of my head and he said, Mom, you know, you got 3 gray hairs. And I said, yeah, because you gave them to me. He said, are you going to color it? I said, no, because every gray hair I get probably more than likely going to come from you. So you need to see them. So I didn't know, even with him gone now, in these 5 years, I'm almost all gray now. Them 3 strands turned into a whole head full of gray.
Any follow-up?
Just one. Just to follow up on the judge asked, other than those teenage incidents, as an adult, was Andrew always a steady and constant presence in your life, ma'am?
Yes,
And that ended on January 12th of 2021, right?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up from defense?
Ms. Watson, was there ever a time, even as an adult, that Andrew II went off to Florida for an extended period of time without telling anyone?
No, he moved to Florida.
So he moved to Florida,
Yes.
but was there not a time where it was essentially unknown that he had moved there to the family?
You mean that I didn't know he moved there?
Yes.
No, I bought him the ticket to go.
Okay, so you were aware that he was moving down?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Any further?
Nothing for the people, thank you.
May this witness be released from subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
On behalf of defendant, may this witness be released from subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, and just so the record is clear, under the CBA, she is going to remain in the courtroom for the remainder of the trial. Thank you.
Thank you. So ma'am, thank you for your time and testimony. You are released from subpoena. You may now watch the trial, but what you may not do is talk about your testimony with any witness or any witness's testimony.
Okay,
So can you do that?
okay. You told me that last week.
Okay, just making sure you're reminded to just not talk about anything. After the trial, you can talk about it with whomever you want, but not now.
All
Okay,
right,
okay, thank you.
so I'm all done.
You are?
I
Do
said
you
I'm
need
all
some
done.
help? Yeah,
I think
we're
I
gonna,
got it.
you sure? Is it a short witness?
It will be half the time of Ms. Watson, we're calling Mr. Watson Senior, it'd be similar content, but should be about half the content. Whatever the court likes to really go.
Sure, let's do it. We'll break for lunch after that.
So let's make this approach, please.
Thank you. We are going to break for lunch now and return about 1:15. Thank you.
All rise.
Are there any matters we need to address prior to taking our lunch break?
There are no additional matters for the people this morning, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, we'll lock the courtroom at lunch so you can leave all of your belongings there that you don't carry during lunch. So we'll return about 1:15 or so. Thank you. Talk to the record.